In today's Bible story, we're going to talk about the fall of mankind. You see, after God's creation, He created Adam and Eve, and the Bible says that He put them in a garden called Eden to keep the garden, to dress it, to basically do the work of the garden, trim the rose bushes and prune the trees and whatnot. And we don't know how long they lived in the Garden of Eden in that way, but the Bible says they were naked and unashamed. They had never seen sin, never witnessed sin, and they had never sinned, and sin had not yet entered into the world. But one day there was a serpent, and we understand now that that serpent was Satan, the fallen angel Lucifer. Well, that serpent came into the Garden of Eden. He met with Eve, and he asked Eve about a certain tree that God had planted in the garden. And this tree was called the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And God had told Adam and Eve that you can eat of every tree of the garden except for this tree. For in the day that you eat of that tree, you will surely die. And the serpent asks Eve about that tree, and he says, "Did God really say you cannot eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil?" Eve responded or said, "Yes, God said that we cannot eat of it, nor can we touch it, lest we die." Of course, Eve was mistaken because God had never said that you cannot touch the tree, merely you cannot eat of it. But the serpent continued to beguile and to deceive Eve. He said, "No, you won't surely die. In the day that you eat of the tree, the knowledge of good and evil, you will become like God, and you will know the difference between good and evil." And so Eve looked at that tree. And the Bible says that she realized that it was good to look upon, and it was good to eat. It was good for food, and it was desired to be able to make one wise. And she lifted up her hand, and she plucked one of the fruit off that tree, and she ate of it. The Bible says that she gave to her husband Adam to eat of it as well. And after they ate of that, their eyes were opened, the Bible says, and they realized that they were naked. Yes, they had received a knowledge that they had not received before, but it was not a knowledge that they ever needed or should have wanted. It was a knowledge of evil. They had known good, because they had known God, but now they knew evil as well. And the Bible says they went and they sewed for themselves aprons made of fig leaves to try and hide themselves from God, hide their nakedness. And so when God came into the Garden of Eden in the cool of the day to walk and to talk with them as He normally did, they had hid themselves. And God asked, "Adam, where are you?" And Adam and Eve humbly and meekly came forward at one point, and we hid because we were naked and we were afraid. Of course, they had not before known they were naked, and so God asked, "Who told you that you were naked? Did you eat of the fruit that I told you not to eat of?" Well, then the blame game begins to happen, and they all begin to blame one another. Adam says, "Well, it was the woman whom you gave to me. It was her fault. She gave me the fruit." And then Eve said, "Well, it was the serpent. He tricked me into eating the fruit." But all in all, it was each of their responsibility. It was the serpent, it was Eve, and it was Adam's responsibility. So they were each cursed. The serpent was cursed to crawl on his belly for all the days of his life. He was also given a prophecy that the seed of the woman would one day crush his head, and that would be fulfilled when Jesus would rise from the dead, crushing the head of the serpent, the devil. Eve was cursed with pain in childbirth. She was also cursed by knowing that even though she would want to rule over her family, she would not be able to. She would have to follow her husband. And Adam was cursed with hard labor. No longer would the earth readily bring forth its fruit to him. He would have to work for it. He'd have to farm and to work hard and to go through thorns and thistles and briars to bring forth his food. And finally, they were cast out of the Garden of Eden, with an angel, a cherubim with a flaming sword of fire guarding the entrance. sin had entered into the world. Mankind would forever be irrevocably changed because of it. But God had not given up on them. God believed in them. And God would one day send His Son to die on the cross for mankind, to redeem them from the mistake of sin that they had made, and allow them to not have to experience the death that was given them upon eating of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil.